Ladies, gentlemen, and destined ones of all ages, Black Myth Wukong has been out properly for a couple of days now, and as you progress in, you may find that the bosses start to get a little bit more difficult, especially the optional or secret unlock bosses that are intended to be a bit more of a challenge. Of course, difficulty is all relative, though, at the end of the day, and for some people, this game is a breeze. For others, it's challenge after challenge after challenge, but even if you aren't struggling, you may simply just be someone who wants to unlock more of the skill tree in the game as soon as possible in order to get to experience as much of the game as possible as far as the actual combat, with more of the Destined 1 movesets available early on. All that said, one of the best pastimes in any game like this is a simple XP or experience farm that help you gain power and different parts of your toolkit earlier on, for whatever reason that you actually want it, and that is represented by will in this game. But then there is also a second part to this here, as there are other materials around the world that can use for things like crafting medicine, and the plants that you gather can be directly translated into items that give you long duration attack boosts, crit chance boosts, and damage reduction boosts too, which can all be active simultaneously, and so this is clearly extremely powerful. But unlike most games with similar crafting systems, the plants that you use to actually make these in Black Myth Wukong don't actually seem to respawn. There is a finite amount of them in the wild, meaning once you pick up a specific mushroom in a specific place on the map, that mushroom is gone. It will not come back. There are others in the world, but that is the only one that is that one, which is a shame for people who really enjoy over-preparing. When it comes to armor and weapon crafting, there again isn't really a logical thing to talk about with farming for the most part, because once silk, as an example for an armor crafting material, enters the drop table for enemies, which it does in chapter 2, it will start to drop from basically every enemy further on from that point, and suddenly you'll go from only having 4 silk for over an hour to having 30 silk in 10 minutes, and this is generally just how the equipment crafting is managed within this game, so that you don't get the ability to unlock things earlier than the game thinks you should have them. So again, there's no real logical reason to farm that at any point before, because you just can't. But there is one important material that can be farmed, and these are called mind cores. Once you have reached the final section of chapter 2 for the game, near the tiger entrance, the big important area near the end, which is how I will word that for relatively low spoilers, you can find the dog NPC who earlier in the chapter taught you to craft medicine. Now he will let you craft permanent stat upgrade pills in exchange for mind cores, with the important note that you can actually reset these and get your mind cores back if you want to re-choose where you spend them at any point, which is actually an extremely forgiving system. But point being, these can do things like increase your maximum health, your maximum stamina, even your crit chance, your mana. There's lots of different ways to augment how you play in small amounts with this system, and these mind cores are the secret to actually crafting them. There are a number of guaranteed mind cores that you will get throughout the game, which essentially just come from the main bosses or some chests in specific places, but these are actually one of the few resources in the game that is farmable infinitely from random drop tables from enemies if you feel so inclined to get a sort of boost in power as soon as you unlock this mechanic. So basically today we're going to go over the best spot in the first half of the game or so to farm experience, referred to as will, which then translates into sparks, which are the skill points in the game. Then we'll go over the best way to farm mind cores as well, with the caveat that while these are farmable, they do have a relatively low drop rate, so just go in with that expectation. Moving on to the big thing then, the best XP farm for this section of the game is actually available incredibly early in the game itself, specifically in chapter 1, the Snake Trail Shrine in the Bamboo Grove area of this chapter. Directly up the path from here, you'll find a snake man just across the wooden bridge. Once you kill this one, if you then jump over the bridge, right under the bridge will be another one of these snake men. Then if you head down the trail into the open sort of circular grove, there will be 2 more living snake men in front of you a short distance from each other, and undead snakes will also come to life and attack you here, but they are just worth far less experience, so they're not really worth purposefully killing. Each living snake man, however, will give you 175 will for total within this little loop, and my best runs were about 60 seconds per loop, which makes us somewhere in the ballpark of 700 will per minute or 40,000 will per hour, if done absolutely perfect runs every time. And each level or each spark that you gain seems to be around 2,000 will, which means that this is around 20 skill points per hour of farming through this method, 20 sparks, which is really solid, especially for something that you can do as early as chapter 1, and it just gets even faster and more efficient as you improve your gear and get better at killing things of this level once you get further into the game. And of course you can always come right back to here even in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, whatever. After killing all 4 snake men then, what you want to do is use the Incense Trail Talisman item to actually return to your last used shrine, which should be the Snake Trail Shrine. This will automatically rest and reset all of the enemies in the area, and then you can repeat this loop as much as you want, stopping when you feel that you've had enough experience. For reference of XP scaling, there's not really anything more efficient for this in the next few chapters, as generally the enemies will scale scale up to be way tankier, way harder to kill in general, more complex movesets, especially the ones that will give you decent amounts of will for killing them. For example, the shield-wielding spearbone enemies that'll come up a bit later in this video are the best ones in Chapter 2. They take way longer to kill and only give 275 will apiece. The amount per enemy is higher, but the time per kill is way worse, and it's far less comfortable to do as well. So this is definitely a better way to do for sort of brain-off experience farm, because these guys expect you to be relatively weak when you first fight them because they're in Chapter 1, but they also expect you to sort of try and avoid them, more so than actually trying to fight them, the whole pack of them. And especially as you get into Chapter 2 and you get your initial upgrading done, these first snake enemies here become quite easy fodder for experience farm. Past that, I also mentioned we talked a bit about mind cores, and it's important to note that there are a limited amount of times that you can upgrade each stat through the pills created with these cores that I mentioned, but that number is separate for each stat, so you can make a whole hell of a lot of these, honestly. And you can sort of just maximize everything if you get enough mind cores eventually. That said, we're going to go over two spots here for the main reason that the game seems to have some sort of internal RNG blocker system, where after you get a mind core from an enemy type, they won't drop one again until you basically just go do something else for a bit. And so the best way to farm this, generally I find, is actually to alternate between two different enemies with drop rates of this material. The fun part is, the first one is the snake guys from the XP farm, the whole loop that we just talked about. The loop for this is exactly the same as we did there, because each of those enemies just has a chance to drop a mind core. Again, the drop rate is relatively low, but they can drop them. The other farmable enemy for these, which seem to have a slightly higher drop rate, is in Chapter 2, and this is in front of the Rock Rest Flat Shrine in the Fright Cliffs region. From here, just straight ahead is a shield-wielding spearbone enemy, most safe to actually take the right path through here so you don't aggro more things, and then after you kill the shield wielder, behind him is a non-shield wielding spearbone, and then if you turn around back towards the shrine and then run up the stairs, you will find a third spearbone, this one again with no shield. All of these enemies are worth 275 will or experience, which definitely isn't bad, and all have a low chance of dropping mind cores on death. As mentioned earlier, this is a worse XP farm than snakes because they simply take longer to kill unless you significantly overgear them, but it isn't bad if you can comfortably do these, and the main reason that you're here anyways is for mind cores. The snakes seem relatively equally good, but just for the sake of it, I generally would again recommend alternating between the two farms. If a mind core drops from a snake, come kill the spearbones. If a mind core drops from the spearbones, go kill the snakes. Simple as that. The drop chance isn't overly high, but it exists, and so this is a way of farming the materials that you need for permanent stat upgrades in this game. Simple as that. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just the best way of farming raw experience in the form of will as well, for just loads of skill points that you can spend even particularly early on within the game, and the also best way to farm mind cores early as well, because those do unlock some hefty permanent upgrades late in Chapter 2. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and hopefully it helps you out as you continue progressing through Black Myth Wukong. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.